Every day, over 170 million Americans start their mornings with a cup of coffee. From seeds originating in 70 countries across the globe, grown by 25 million coffee farmers, and harvested from 3 billion coffee shrubs. Yet virtually none of them is aware that at one time, the majority of the world's coffee was traded from the intersections of Water, Wall, and Front Streets in Lower Manhattan. By 1980, it was gone. There are only a few men who still work in the green coffee industry that spent their careers in the coffee district. The thoughts and memories of these good coffee men are all that remain.
A good coffee man is a sound coffee guy that knows green coffee beans, roasted coffee beans, and knows the business from A to Z.
If you want to describe a good coffee man, it's an individual who's familiar with all the different grades of coffee and quality, and whose judgment you respect.
Good coffee man is not only a man who can cup coffee and tell you its value, but who also can deal with you and you know you can trust that person.
It's an accolade which you don't give yourself. It's an accolade which your peers give you.
I was quoted once in a book that when Jules Kahn bleeds brown. That makes me a coffee man.
There's something about a green coffee trader and his relationships with his customers that is so deeply based on trust that those relationships can last generations.
I got my first job in the green coffee industry in 1957 when I went for an interview at J. Aaron and Company. I worked in J. Aaron's coffee sampling room where we tested coffee, lots of coffee every day, and that's the best way to learn.
I am working in the coffee business as a result of my wife, whose father started with James W. Fife in 1913. I joined them in 1954, learned the business from the ground up. There is no school or college course that will take you into the practical part of the coffee business. Learning to cup and roast coffee has to be hands-on with someone that knows their way.
I learned the business on the spot, so to speak, cupping and tasting coffee.
I got my first job in a green coffee business as a chauffeur for the chairman of the board of J. Aaron and Company. After 9 months of being the chauffeur that I was, he gave me a job in coffee. It was a job, and it was to last 36 years.
I got started in the coffee industry the day after I graduated from college, and 2 years later decided to move to Kenya and learned how to value coffee by tasting it every day. That was Green Coffee Boot Camp.
My first job is the job that I still have with Gillies Coffee Company. In the small geographic area of the lower east side of Manhattan, you had importers, you had warehouses, you had brokers, you had roasters, you had dealers of every kind and description.
The coffee district started at J. Aaron's building at 91 Wall Street, and it went all the way down to the last building in Wall Street, 120 Wall Street, and that entire neighborhood, including Pearl Street, Beaver Street, had several coffee people, and that was the coffee industry.
And it was a very vibrant area. There was a lot of hustle and bustle and activity and guys walking around with pans of coffee at all times.
That made that place the epicenter of not only the coffee in America, but possibly the epicenter of coffee in the world.
If you walked on Front Street, you could always smell coffee.
We had these metal trays that carried about 3/4 of a pound of coffee. You'd walk along Front Street.
And the metal pans all had the name of a dealer, and that's how you presented coffee to a larger dealer.
It was a fascinating, very rich time filled with interesting personalities and a feeling that good and wonderful stuff was being made and there was action and interest in the air. I found it a very romantic time as a child, which is probably one of the reasons why I wanted to be a coffee man.
And they were all friends, they were all in one place, and they were all members of the Green Coffee Association of New York.
In 1923, J. Aaron, Clarence Mackey, Leon and Ace Israel, and about 20 others formed a committee and formed the Green Coffee Association of New York. Prior to 1923, green coffee, which had been coming into the United States for well over 100 years, was handled in a catch-can fashion. And coffee came from countries that were very underdeveloped and very often were not what they were supposed to be. And the first item that was outlined to be done was a contract that would cover the trade, the importer, the roaster, protect them, and leave it all in the hands of the people in the trade.
The Green Coffee Association of New York, which set up certain guidelines, regulations, resolutions to govern this coffee industry, which was growing bigger and bigger decade after decade.
We went to quite a few social events during the year. Through the Green Coffee Association, everybody was very friendly with each other. Then we went back to our offices and we were very competitive the following Monday.
The tricks in the trade were friendships, because basically most people had the same coffees, more or less at the same price. Friendships were an important ingredient in the everyday business.
It was a community. It was a place where you got up in the morning and you went to work amongst a community of people who you liked, who you had respect for, even though they were your competitors. That's a very unusual thing today to find.
Mr. McGregor,
What's wrong, Jeannie?
my coffee, it just isn't any good.
Well, I think you should try new Instant Folgers.
World War II changed the American economy in many ways. The rise of media totally changed the coffee industry. The only real brand that could claim to be national was Maxwell House, because they were using the strength of television, radio, and print advertising to keep their position in the major markets.
Coffee sale. Leading grocers in this area are now featuring a special low price on the large jar of Instant Maxwell House.
If you're a small regional or local roaster, in order to do that television advertising, you are reaching tens of thousands or millions of people who do not know your brand and will never know your brand because the reach of your brand is much narrower. Slowly, things like that began to take a toll, and the older, smaller houses couldn't compete and began to drop by the wayside.
The industry, well, today it's so widespread, the coffee district, there is no coffee district.
One by one, the importers, roasters, and agents and all moved away slowly to the point where everyone is scattered pretty much all around the metropolitan area and further away. And they're not all in that one tight little area that they used to be.
The business of yesteryear was not as sophisticated as it is today.
We had long-distance telephone calls and teletypes, and were antique compared with the computers that we have today.
All the technology in the world can't make you a good coffee trader. It is gut feel, it is a knowledge of finance, it is a nuanced way of interacting with other cultures.
That kind of very personal way to get samples to a customer, to sit with him as they were roasted, to sit with him as they were cupped, and to chat together about the farm, the coffee, the ship that it came in on. Much of that is lost now, along with the metal trays.
Green Coffee Association had been active in the coffee district since 1923, and on September 11th, 2001, number 4 World Trade Center was destroyed in the terrorist attack, and among the wreckage was the complete archive that was held by the Green Coffee Association. So all we have now are the thoughts and the memories of these men who worked there, who were part of it.
To be a good coffee man is to sell your coffee with dignity and with respect.
Some people asked if it was a job. I told them it was never a job. I got up at 6 in the morning, got to the office at 7:30, left at 7:30 at night, and looked forward to it every day. And every day I stayed, I liked it more.
I've continued to work with coffee all these years, mainly because I find it enjoyable and challenging, just like it was when I first started.
I wish that I worked in the coffee district at its peak, because green coffee guys like each other because we speak the same language. We do business together with the people who we like. I can speak to them on the phone, I can send them emails, I can follow them on Facebook and on with Instant Messenger. But that's not the same as hanging out on the front step of a 4-story walk-up every night on a summer's night, or playing football on the cobblestones. You know, these are the places and the times that really stick with me. So all I've got is their stories.